All right.
Cool. Well, I guess I can start. First of all, it's really nice to see how many people are interested in like esports as a class. Like obviously, like we didn't have this is like an elective for when I was in school. So coming into esports, a lot of it was starting being very interested in specific video games and seeing the interest, or at least the potential of what was available. So for me, I started playing League of Legends in December 2010-ish, and my kind of onboarding to the whole world, I guess that's a lot more common now, was thinking, I suck. I'm really terrible at it, and I want to learn how to get better. So what ended up happening is I learned, I started looking at twitch.tv for people who were playing the game. I was trying to figure out, watching the closest thing to professionals at that time. The professional scene was still very small. So my favorite streamer joined one of the biggest teams in North America, and naturally that's how I got onboarded to actually following the competition. I was just watching the guy play day in, day out from the house that he lived in with the other guys. They decided, okay, well, we need a player. We're gonna bring you on. And then I think a couple weeks later, they were off to Ukraine or something like that for a tournament. And I was just like, okay, I'm on board. I've got, you know, I'm a fan of this guy. And I want to see him do well because I'm already attached to the streamer. So I kind of got onboarded to the team. This was like my last year in school. I wasn't really feeling many of the opportunities in journalism at that time. I wasn't really going to go work at a newspaper, the CBC or something like that. So I thought to take a gamble. I looked and said, esports is going to be growing. At the time, it was really starting to be something through streaming and through like the community building I'm going to be talking about. It became something where you could see it and you're going to say people are going to be able to make a lot of money and they're going to need people that support them or work in the kind of adjacent industry. So basically I saw it and was like, okay, let's just do this esports journalism thing and see where it goes. At the time I was freelancing and doing a lot of, I was working at a software company out of school, but eventually I just kind of said, screw it, I'm going to try to do freelance full time, and that led to a lot of the contracts and jobs that you know, that led me here today. At a certain time, it's like, especially in Canada, there wasn't a lot of people doing the kind of media game, like the media figures kind of thing. So after a couple of years of freelancing, I did contracts for Riot Games, doing their initial like rollout for their League of Legends league. Like they basically took their league in-house and said, we want to pay the teams, we want to support them, we want to have a live studio audience, we want to make this legitimate. So they needed people that actually like knew enough about the game and the teams to be able to write about it. So I helped populate their initial site, writing game write-ups and that kind of stuff. Eventually I did some freelancing that took me, like I've been to South Korea, I've been to Poland, I've been to Los Angeles a bunch of times just to be able to watch and kind of learn from people. That eventually kind of like worked in a way where I should probably, there you go, sorry. I'm probably going to forget to do that a bunch of times. In 2015, I got a bunch of tweets one day that were like, hey, this is a job that you can do. And the Score was looking for people to start an esports newsroom out of their offices on Spadina. Me and another journalism grad who was like 2 years younger than me in journalism school applied for it, so we knew each other already. But basically, they just needed someone with like people with industry experience. So I ended up helping establish the Score Esports, which was up until recently an app with like a newsroom and employees and a full shifts and that kind of stuff, covering League of Legends, covering Dota, covering a bunch of other games. I think they're just a YouTube channel now. I think they've scaled back their actual like news and reporting, but pretty much it was an effort to just make the Score app for like traditional sports into an esports version. So make it easier for people to follow the teams that they want, follow the results that they want, that kind of stuff. From there, I kind of burned out really hard. It's really easy to burn out in esports, but it's a rewarding industry. And I decided to kind of shift my focus from journalism to marketing. I started doing social media for a couple different events, and basically saying, hey, your social media sucks, because a lot of them had not taken a lot of time to, it's people running their own companies, and they may not have thought about social media or marketing as its own specific job. And that led to a job with Evil Geniuses, which is basically one of the oldest esports teams that have kind of gone through the ages of early esports to present esports. I came on as a contractor, and 2 weeks later they were like, hey, you want to do all of it? So that turned into a 2-year full-time job. So that worked out. Since then, I departed EG in October, and I currently work for chillhop.com, which is a music label. They do music and streaming and like 24/7 radio and that kind of stuff, but they also have a very big passion for gaming and esports and making it so that people can find easy music to use in streams. So basically I've been hired on in order to be able to do their partnerships and reach out in community for that kind of stuff. So the reason I mention all this is because esports has a bunch of different kind of like timelines, and what we're seeing right now is we're starting to see people be able to make a professional, like full-time career, benefits, that kind of stuff. And we're also seeing the emergence of what I'm calling esports adjacent careers, where I'm not working in esports, I'm not working for a team, but I'm working technically in esports for a company that wants to get into the space. And in the coming years, you're going to see a lot of different applications of that. You're going to see companies, car companies, shoe companies, sports companies, apparel companies. They're going to want a piece of esports. They're going to want a piece of streaming. They're going to want a piece of, you know, that kind of stuff. And people with knowledge about those kind of industries and how they work are going to be able to be hired and going to be able to find full-time careers there. So if you're interested about esports, even if it's in a tangential way, you're probably going to be able to find an application if you're interested in games, if you're interested or passionate about the communities. So this lecture is pretty much very much centered around passion and enthusiasm and how people have learned how to monetize that. And that's pretty much through streaming. Some disclaimers. For my own sanity, I guess. Esports is relatively a new and untested industry. A lot of this stuff is just from my own experience. There's going to be some applications that exist that I don't know of or I haven't experienced. So there's no textbooks written on it yet, and that's something you're probably running into, is that there's a lot of different applications, and I urge you guys to seek them out if you're interested about that kind of stuff. Like I said, the industry is kind of going through a period of transition. It's getting bigger, it's getting more stable. Still a lot of awkwardness, but we're learning and we're trying to grow. So if you're interested, it's a growing industry that'll keep you on your toes. So what's the difference between traditional and esports? Basically, I think of it as access and shared context. For most of you, if you've ever played Super Smash Brothers or if you've ever played Mario Party, if you've played it in a casual setting, you know how fast you can make a character move. You know how fast you can win. Like Mario Kart, you know how fast you can turn, you know how fast you can get to first place. When you're watching esports, it's very easy to be able to look at what they're doing and say, that's special because they are so much better than me. And that's something that you'll find in traditional sports as well. If you've ever played pickup basketball or pickup soccer or pickup football, whatever, you know how bad you are. And then you know when you watch pro sports how good they are. That shared context makes you interested. That shared context makes you enthusiastic, and it makes it a lot easier to connect with the people that you're watching because you have the same access to the same games that they do. If you're really good at Dota, you can play public games with pros that happen to be playing at the same time. If you're really good at basketball, it's very rare that you're going to be able to play a pickup game with LeBron. That's something, that accessibility and that kind of shared context is what makes esports unique and makes it accessible to people in our demographic who are spending a lot of time and a lot of effort around video games. Teams and players both have an interest in interacting with their communities through social media. The connection is, obviously a very enriching one. It's awesome to have people think you're cool, but at the same time, it's also a way to generate money. It's also a way to generate income and stability. So for a lot of these people, their careers are actually fairly short. If you're what I found anyway in starting esports is a lot of people are bored university students and they have a good computer of their own for the first time. They have good internet through their university and they don't particularly care about their program. So they're playing 12 hours of League of Legends a day, 12 hours of Dota a day because they don't really know what to do with themselves. That leads to streaming, that leads to money, that leads to being picked up to a team, that leads to a greater career. However, as you get older, as the game falls out of favor, as the developer stops supporting esports, if it's a developer-run league, your potential for earning is very short. It's very compressed into a couple years. So a large presence is largely conducive to generating income, whether you're a professional or an amateur. It pays to have more followers. And for most of you, even if you don't know esports, It's like influencer marketing. If you have a lot of followers, you can basically say, hey, give me money, I will promote your product, and you'll give me money, and hopefully you'll make sales out of that. Like where you are, which platform you're on, whether you're on Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram or any of the numerous platforms that are popping up daily, depends on what audience you're trying to reach and what you are like enthusiastic about like producing. If you're in certain games, it's going to be a lot easier to do TikTok-friendly content than others. If you're living in a house with 3 other guys because those are your teammates or those are your they're streaming too, it's a lot easier to make video content when you've got multiple people participating instead of you sitting in your office. I run into this problem. There's only so many times I can take photos of my office for Instagram. It gets kind of boring. So yeah, the platform demographics largely depend on the function of the platform and the personalities of the players, like people using it. Something that we see is Call of Duty. Early Call of Duty players or Call of Duty players in like the mid-2000s, they've successfully transitioned out into YouTube, careers or something like that. They started doing Call of Duty highlights for their channel. That's what blew them up. And then they decided, okay, I'm tired of playing the game. I'm going to move on and do something else. So certain game communities are more friendly to different types of content than others. Some are more serious. Some don't care at all. So it's kind of up to you. It's also kind of a bad thing when you're in a community that doesn't really want to engage with certain types of content, and that's what you like producing. So there's different mismatches and matches. Excuse me. For the purposes of this lecture, this is where like we were talking about who doesn't know, or like who knows and doesn't know about the platforms that I'm going to be talking about. Discord. Discord is basically a free-to-use. It's like voice chat, centralized chat in terms of text. Has voice channels, video sharing, that kind of stuff. It's very gamer marketed, but it's found a lot of use, particularly because it's really easy to use. Previously, esports really ran on Skype or ran on IRC, which are very antiquated and very hard for the layman to really just start using. And Discord has really kind of centralized that and made it really easy to use. It's kind of contributed to a demographic shift that I'm going to be talking about, where you used to have people who are really big tech enthusiasts or really competent tech people running their own self-hosted servers or running their own forums or something like that. Discord's made it really easy for anyone to just open up a server, start a community, and be able to leverage it in terms of however they want. With live streaming platforms, I'm pretty much going to be talking about Twitch. Twitch is a big player in the kind of game sphere, if that makes sense. They're owned by Amazon. They were purchased for, I think, $2 billion a couple years ago, $5 billion, I don't remember. A lot of money. But basically, a lot of what I'm talking about in terms of the strategy on how to use those platforms is applicable to all the other ones as well. YouTube, Mixer, Caffeine, Facebook, VK if you're in Russia, and then the numerous ones in China and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty similar premises. You're on your computer, you're using a software suite in order to be able to capture video, webcam, audio, and then broadcast it to an audience in real time. That audience is going to be able to chat with you and then contribute to your stream either through donations, subscriptions, that kind of stuff, and that's how people generate revenue. So when I say Twitch, I'm really meaning a whole kind of industry, but Twitch is pretty much the easiest thing to learn, or sorry, the easiest shorthand for this kind of stuff. So yeah, both platforms represent a change in ease of access. I can tell you for years, everyone just wanted to get off Skype. Skype is terrible. Skype is the worst, and Skype would compromise entire operations and players because it would make your IP address public. That means that anyone who wanted to hack your stream, if you were streaming, if they had you on Skype, if they could find you on Skype, they could denial of service your stream, take it offline and affect your business and your ability to make money. Discord increased the amount of security and the amount of tools that people had in order to be able to run their own businesses. And making it easy and making it so you didn't have to be a techie or know someone, a friend or something to run your business for you, it made it a lot easier to be able to approach. It's the same thing with Twitch. Twitch has made it extremely easy for almost anyone to run a program and run their own live stream. And what we're seeing an ease of access, like I said, but also it's just ease of onboarding to new fans. It's easier to take fans who aren't tech enthusiasts themselves and get them into your sphere, get them into your ecosystem. Being able to say, join this Discord server from this link that I've put in the chat is a lot easier than saying, type this IP address into Mumble type this password in, bookmark it properly, set up certificates and whatever. It's a lot less barriers to access and makes it a lot easier for just like anyone to be able to join your community. And taking those roadblocks and minimizing them is key to being able to grow, especially as attention is at a premium these days. So yeah, with scale and with the ease of onboarding new people and people who may not know like a lot of technical stuff, it means that you've got scale. It means you've got money. You've got a large amount of purchasing power within this space. You've got a lot of people with a lot of disposable income and a lot of people who are looking for communities and connection to be able to stick with. If you find people that you like online, the stereotype of loners or nerds in their basement is kind of true, where they're looking for places to be able to put down roots. They're looking for common people or common interests from people. They're looking for just people to talk to and interact with and become friends with. So making that easier, it's good. So another kind of key aspect I'm going to go into a lot in this lecture is community attachment and identity. You guys have probably heard of NBA Twitter or have seen K-pop Twitter or seen any of those social media where people's attachment to a certain media property fuels their identity. It fuels how they view themselves as a person. It fuels how they validate themselves. So seeing how people interact with different streamers or teams or leagues or games, it really informs how you keep them around. You keep them around very easily by being able to play up to that, either through a pandering way or an authentic way, hopefully an authentic way. But that's what keeps people around. And it keeps people from losing the attention on you and going over to another game or server or whatever. Basically, it's endlessly updating content. If any of you have sat late at night swiping Twitter and waiting for it to refresh, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, so in context with esports, I'm pretty much going to be going into streaming first. We're going to be doing a little bit of profiling with I've pretty much created 4 profiles of fans of different degrees. And we're going to go into Discord and how people interact, like those different types of fans interact. And then we're going to have just like a question period, that kind of stuff at the end. In the context of esports, we're going to start with streaming. Streaming provides a way for athletes to connect to their audience and provide value. Providing value is the key there. It's how do I come to you as a prospective fan and I make it worth your while to stick around? How do I tell you it's worth spending money on me? How do I tell you it's worth joining my Discord? Joining a Discord means, hey, I'm putting push notifications to your phone when I'm going live. That takes a certain amount of trust. That takes a certain amount of attachment. And being able to provide value through a stream, that's kind of the onboarding process. For me, like I said, I just found a guy who streamed League of Legends because I wanted to get better. That was the value that he produced for me. Some people have, it's more entertainment. I find this guy funny. Sometimes it's attention. It's if I give this person money, this person acknowledges me as a person. We're going to talk about parasocial relationships. If any of you know that, that's a fun little concept. But that's kind of how it is. You find how you provide value to an audience, and then you kind of lean on that really hard. If you're not a professional already, like if you aren't doing it as your sole source of income or you aren't contracted to a team or an organization, it allows you to grow your fan base and enable you to do it more. If you're doing classes and then streaming on your off hours, there's an energy budget there. You might only have an energy like for yourself to stream like 2 or 3 hours after your class. You might want to go out with your friends instead of streaming on a Saturday for 8 hours or whatever. So being able to have income means that it makes that kind of stuff easier, or potentially doing it full time until you get picked up by someone that allows you to do it more stable. It's kind of like a ladder. You start off doing it for free, and then you start off doing it for a little bit of money, and then a lot of money, and then a lot of money for someone else. It's one step at a time. So a professional with a healthy viewer base, or like a streamer with a healthy viewer base, represents more value for their employer due to being able to sell ad inventory. And for the most part, sponsors and ad inventory are primarily the way of generating larger amounts of income. Sure, you're going to get donations, you're going to get subscriptions and that kind of stuff, but being able to go to a company and say, I have 50,000 followers on an average stream, or I have 10,000 viewers on an average stream, and I stream 5 days a week. That represents X amount of minutes that people are going to be watching me. And if you put a banner on that and give me a bunch of money, you can generate some sales too. So that's pretty much the transaction. That's at its core. Working for teams, working for organizations, sponsorships are generally a good way of generating income, and you need numbers in order to be able to do that. You need consistent numbers, and you need numbers that matter. So yeah, being able to tell a company that, hey, we have a minimum kind of guarantee of how many eyeballs we can put your stuff in front of, that's what generates sales. Any questions so far? Cool. So the catch-22, the kind of paradox that comes with streaming is that when your mind is on competition as a professional player, streaming is its own job. Streaming becomes an activity that you need to be incentivized to do. Because if your mind is saying, I want to be the best at Dota, I want to be the best at Smash Brothers, I want to be the best at Madden, streaming isn't necessarily always the best environment to get better in. You're not necessarily playing the best competition. You may have people griefing you. You may have people that just distract you and just you aren't able to put your best energy towards it. So at a certain level, some pros, that's one of those things I said in the kind of, well, my mind's blanking, but basically like there's a lot of different cases of pros. Some love streaming. Some have an enthusiasm and energy for streaming on their off hours. Other people just want to be able to concentrate on their competition, but that's kind of, you need to make money somehow, you know? For instance, a lot of Dota 2 professionals. Dota 2 is a game that is extremely complicated. It's, how I describe it, it's cricket. It is one of those things that if you had someone explain it to you verbally, you wouldn't be able to understand it. You need multiple hours and patience and time and multiple wikis to be able to even follow a game of Dota 2. And with that, it changes so quickly that as a professional, you want to be able to keep up with it. It doesn't help that the Super Bowl or year-end competition for Dota is the biggest prize pool in esports. If you win the International, it's a tournament that happens every August, you win $6 million. And that's not your team. You win $6 million. Or not 6, but 2 million?
Like splits.
Yeah, split it's like you become a millionaire. And the last 2 internationals that have happened, they were won by the same team. So those two, like that team back to back probably have earned in 2 years $4 million. So if you're looking at that, if you're a professional in this game and you see that as the big goal, if you see that as the year end, like the season is a grind, you know, trying to make tournaments, trying to do well at tournaments, trying to even find a team to sponsor you, if that's the goal to get to that tournament, why would you ever stream? Why would you ever put in a lot of effort in order to build your own community? Why would you ever look to engage people or try to make content or even update your social media? There's some esports pros in Dota or other games that, you know, they'll go 6 months without a Twitter post. And as a professional, they don't really see all the different aspects, or it's just too much effort to ask them because the potential reward is high. If you go to the international and if you come not last place, there's 16 teams, if you come, I think it's 12th to 13th or something like that, you're still making $400,000. And that's gonna carry you for the next year. So being able to at least even make it to the international means you've made enough money. So why would you ever stream? So being able to maintain and grow a stream and think about it in a marketing way and thinking about what can I do in order to make my stream more entertaining? What can I buy in order to up the quality of it? That's its own full-time job, and not every pro is gonna wanna do that. So it's kind of a varying case. You're gonna see it game to game change. Yes, so depending on the game community in stream, or like how streams work, competition might actually hamper income. So for people who play Super Smash Brothers competitively, that involves a lot of travel because you're traveling to different cities that are hosting tournaments. And if you win that tournament, you're only gonna make about $2,000. That's kind of the reality of that scene, where the amount of money for the prize pool is either being generated by income from people entering the tournaments or a pot bonus from a sponsor or something like that. But you're not gonna be able to have that kind of full-time living off of competition winnings unless you're consistently first place or unless you're at a team that is paying you a salary. So for a lot of these people, they really like competing at Super Smash Brothers, but if they're running their own streams and they're making a decent income from that stream, why would they ever compete? You know, the competition comes from a passion and from a fire within them, obviously. But if they're talking in practical terms in terms of keeping the lights on, some of them opt to skip tournaments purely because the amount of time that it would take to travel and go to this hotel and possibly get sick and maybe come last place because you had a bad day, you're not going to remake your the travel costs and the hotel costs and the entry fees and that kind of stuff unless you're doing well at the tournament. So why would you leave streaming when you might lose some subscribers or you might not have that donation income from that weekend that you might normally have. So it's kind of both ways. It's kind of, some people don't like doing the marketing aspect of it. Some people don't like doing the competition aspect of it. But esports is growing in a way where both sides of them are very necessary. So that, like I said, it presents a dilemma. At what point do you become like a variety streamer? At what point do you just play the games that you want to play? Say, people like me for my personality, I'm not going to compete anymore. And that's kind of like where things get a little bit blurry in the context of this course, because it's an esports course, but esports very much interfaces with the rest of Twitch culture or live streaming culture, or streaming video games as a whole. So you're going to see varying degrees of competition, but the same concepts apply. With this in mind, teams face the challenge of a smaller inventory of saleable space. So basically, if your players don't stream, how are you going to sell that space to a sponsor? You know, if your players don't do their own content or hate doing content that you are producing for them, at what point, you know, does that become a problem? From my experience anyway, I don't know every single contract that's out there. Some contracts incentivize, you know, X amount of tweets per month or whatever, you get a certain bonus of money. If you stream for a certain amount of time per month, you get a bonus of money, that kind of thing. It's either bonus structure or an incentive to be able to say, do this thing so we can secure more contracts. Like I said, it depends on the team, it depends on the player. Smaller teams, like like say local or regional teams, say the Toronto Marlies, if they were an esports team, or like the Hamilton Tiger Cats, they might not have enough money to be able to incentivize that. They might not be able to say like, well, we don't have enough money to pay you, so we can't make you do anything, you know? So it depends on how big the team is, how big they want to grow, and what contracts they have access to. But what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a lot of teams employ non-competitive streamers for the purpose of filling the same inventory. So if you are a, there's a group of streamers that they play retro games really fast, and they break those games. They glitch them to hell and back. They make it so that a game that would take 12 hours can be beaten in less than 10 minutes. Those people have the same kind of competitive mindset where they're trying to take their time lower and lower and lower and lower. So the air of the stream is the same, where you're watching someone who's very good, and the shared context that I mentioned before of, you know, how fast you can make it go, they're making it go that much faster, and that's why it's impressive. They have the same kind of air when it comes to their streams, but they don't have to travel anywhere. There's no competitions or regular races for speedrunning. So they can just stream all the time and fulfill the ad inventory needs and hopefully build as big of a audience, but they don't have the travel requirements, they don't have the competition requirements, that kind of stuff. So what we're seeing teams do is they're keeping these teams, they're keeping the competitive teams that may not want to stream, but hiring a bunch of people or elevating their staff to be able to say, you guys can stream, you guys can be the public-facing advocates for our brand that are comfortable being on camera, who are comfortable tweeting and Snapchatting and TikToking and all that stuff, while we'll just leave our players over there to do what they want. So it's basically, how do we get enough eyeballs to be able to justify getting contracts? How do we get enough eyeballs to be able to like get enthusiasm for merchandise? What we're seeing is a lot of commonalities with like hip hop or streetwear, where they're making very limited releases and they're doing merchandise drops and hoping that they sell out within 10 minutes, because that makes them look good. So being able to build that fan base, it's about generating revenue, and it's also about the principles of the team. Do they want to foster a certain environment, or are they just looking to get people in their ecosystem to make money? So yeah, we're gonna go into the kind of the main meat of it. Sorry, I'm a bit long-winded. Stream chat. Basically, every chat, or like every streaming platform, is going to have a scrolling chat channel on the side that people can chat in real time, and the streamer is hopefully reading that chat. The function's interaction, but it can be kind of a paradox, because at a certain level of growth, say like anywhere over 200 viewers in a chat channel, that can get really chaotic, and it becomes impossible for the streamer to actually pay attention to what's being said and pay attention to their game. So at that point, it requires more moderation, and it requires more kind of gating to make sure that people aren't spamming, people aren't abusing the chat, people aren't, you know, swearing or racial slurs or whatever bad stereotype you've heard of internet chat and commenting and that kind of stuff. It's just to make sure that stuff doesn't happen. For some people and for some streamers, that chaos can be actually really alluring. It can be, freeing. It's the tragedy of anonymity. Since everyone's kind of behind a handle, it's like some people really don't care if they get banned or if they seem like an idiot. Or some people just go into a stream just to troll the streamer, that they may not even like them. That's just how it kind of works. Examples include large esports streams or spectacle streams, things that are meant to be viewed by a lot of people. Sometimes you'll see viewerships up to 100,000 people or more in big, tier 1 esports streams. You're not there to have a discussion. You're not going to be able to talk back and forth with anyone just because it's moving so fast. What I've kind of likened that to is it's like it's an emotional response. Being able to see a crazy play happen in the video and then seeing people spam a specific emote because that's what that reaction represents. It's a good way of it's like if you've ever been in a traditional sports stadium and cheers happen. When a goal is scored and people go nuts, that's the same thing as this chat spam. It just depends on how chaotic and how kind of dangerous it can get, if that makes sense. And that comes down to moderation and resources. Developing a regular stable of regulars as a streamer or someone who is doing their own content is pretty essential, mostly because it plants the seeds of parasocial relationships, even if it's unintentional. And for people who don't know, a parasocial relationship is when you feel a friendship or a relationship with someone that is ultimately separate. If you are watching a YouTube channel or if you follow someone on Instagram that does not interact with you, but you feel that you have a genuine friendship with them, that's a parasocial relationship. It's probably not the most scientific, explanation, but in this context, it's basically how are you focusing to make people emotionally attached to you or emotionally involved with you to be able to have them attached to your brand, be able to attach them to your company. Most of us have brand loyalties to clothing or movies or Marvel or something like that, and that is because they engage us emotionally. It's because we see ourselves in them, or we say, this is scratching an itch that I have and you guys do it really well, so I'm going to reward you with my loyalty and my money. So that's pretty much the same kind of thing here. People do that by incentivizing that kind of relationship. Either saying, oh, this person has a 40-month subscription streak. So when a subscription on these channels renews, you'll be able to announce it to the chat. That's a function of how this works. The streamer will say, oh, thanks to Matt for subscribing for a year. And having that year under your belt it says, oh, I'm more dedicated than person beside me, or I am more valued, or whatever. That kind of relationship is one that's built either positively or negatively. Some people do text to speech for donations. So if you donate money to the stream and put in a message, it'll be read by a robot voice on the chat. Some people do that as a way to troll people. Some people do that for more wholesome reasons. But for that money is going to that person's PayPal at the end of the day. Whether they stoke that relationship, good or bad, is up to the person and their own tolerance. Subscriber-only chat, so being able to limit people. For on Twitch, for instance, you can basically say, if you aren't subscribed to this channel, you can't chat. That incentivizes people to be able to spend money, and it also kind of throws this weird pleb chat, hey, you can't afford to chat in this. It's a ironic, not ironic kind of class system. It's kind of weird, but that's part of the culture. Discord access, again, there's ways to automate it so that if you subscribe to a channel, that automatically gets you an invite to their Discord server. And that's a level of access that people who don't spend money get. They don't have access to. So having those kind of like roles or having those kind of value propositions for people, hey, if you spend money, you get more access to me. And you like me, you connect with me, so spend money. It's not always that cynical, but it's just for the purposes of this, that's how I'm kind of putting it. Conversely, some streamers just love that chaos. They love to unmoderate their chat or just say, okay, here's a bot that will prune all the bad stuff, prune all the stuff that makes it like completely unusable, but otherwise just say, I don't care if you subscribe, I don't care if you donate, I'm all about the numbers, or I'm all about just like how stupid chat gets, or what songs they're putting in my queue or request queue or something like that. Some of these people are masochists, I'm convinced, because their Twitch chat is absolutely terrible to them, but they just keep on doing it. That's just kind of how it goes. As an informal rule, chatters really dislike and resent being restricted. They do not like having rules, if that makes sense. They do not like having they don't like it when marketing is obvious. And I think that's one of the things that all of us can really agree on, is that if we connect with a brand on a personal level, we hate feeling marketed to. We hate being able to say, oh, you're just trying to get my personal information, or oh, you're just trying to squeeze me for more money. So people generally don't like that, especially like depending on the attachment level. Some people think more critically about that kind of stuff than others. Some people will view it more cynically. Some people will see it more as a cash grab, or that kind of stuff, manipulation, whatever, even if it isn't true. That's just kind of the psychology of chat sometimes. Excuse me.
Why is that? Why?
It's complicated.
Across that, and it's a question that the broadcasters are asking.
It's
like that, we're trying to figure out a way that you're able to monetize it and market it that is less restrictive and something that they're going to, but it's not as though advertising is a part of everybody's day-to-day world.
So my next point is behavioral policing and platform purity. And the thing is that a lot of people who, remember I was saying that there is a kind of, things have opened up considerably to a greater audience. The people who were there before, the people who were there first, it's kind of a hipster mentality, if that makes sense, where it's I liked it before it was cool. So seeing a streamer who you've had a very good relationship with, who is very open or very warm or whatever, seeing them change into someone where, oh, all of a sudden all that requires money, it's like it affects how you view it as authentic, and it affects how you're thinking, oh, this guy isn't genuine anymore. This guy just wants money, and ultimately it's down to the individual person. Some people are a little bit more, I would say, unhinged than others. Some people can take it a little bit better when they think, okay, well, if you want me to stream 8 hours a day, I got to be able to make money. I got to be able to keep the lights on. So depending on how the streamer approaches it, and depending on how the chat reacts to it, it's very different. Some people will see any type of monetization as like an affront. They'll just think it's, oh, you're just, it's a very cynical kind of thing. And I would say that's kind of a consequence of news being free online and a lot of content being free online, is it's expected to be free. Especially once, before, when people weren't making $30,000 a month off their stream, people remember those days very fondly, and they view it nostalgically, and they think that it was just pure and everything was great and everyone just did it for the right reasons. And now that the money's here, oh, everything sucks now. So seeing it as a place that they really liked being, and seeing it change into something they don't necessarily feel as attached to, or they don't feel that they belong, that can really stoke really negative feelings in people. But that's just my own armchair psychology. It's very difficult. Soft restrictions, that's kind of how you get around it, is you have soft restrictions rather than hard ones. Instead of locking things behind money, you say, hey, if you pay money, you can chat more than once a minute. You can send more than one line a minute. Saying, okay, you have to follow my channel in order to chat instead of subscribe to chat. That's a softer requirement than saying you have to spend money. You just have to hit follow in order to be able to chat. That's easier, right? And again, that influences how much numbers they have in terms of being able to go and say, I have X amount of followers, pay me money. Some people, though, Twitch accounts are expendable, especially if their usernames aren't attached to them wanting to stream, or they don't have any money put into it. That's something that we're going to be going into in the profiling, is being able to say, there's a person who just uses their account as a way to keep track of their follows. They don't care if they stream, they don't care about spending any money through it, so there's no attachment. It doesn't matter if it gets banned or not. They're just going to spam as much as they want, and they don't really care what happens as a consequence. There's also just little memes and novelty accounts where someone will create a username that says, reply to this if X person throws the game. And then if that person throws the game, all of chat will just reply to that person. And it's just a way of kind of expressing an emotion that emotes can't really provide. So yeah, it's kind of the problem of commenting has now moved into live chat, where you've got an anonymity problem and you've got a low risk, and people can just create a new account. It depends on how attached they are to their actual identity and their actual account, which we will get into. Ultimately, chatters just desire to be seen. Chatters desire to be part of something, and they enjoy being present and acknowledged and having attention put on them. That's why they're chatting in the first place. I don't chat very often because I don't really care about the streamer acknowledging me. Whether it's the streamer acknowledging or other people in the chat acknowledging them, that's kind of what that's the genesis of chat spam pretty much, is attention. So that's kind of its own economy. If you use Firefox or Chrome, there are browser extensions that will enable emotes that if you don't have that extension, it just shows up as text. But if you have the extension installed or the app installed on your computer, it'll convert it into an image. And that has its own culture, that has its own pressure to, hey, enable that emote on this channel. Why isn't it here? And it just allows for culture to grow that's kind of independent of the streamer, which is something usually that, I don't know, is very iffy. Normally, if you're a streamer, you want to keep control of what's going on in your chat and what the kind of culture is developing around your product.
Matt, do you think that, like, I mean, and it's really a question for the class too, is sometimes people just like to join the chat with each other, right?
Yeah.
You're not even caring about the streamer. You're just chiming in on something. And that can be also part of its own culture.
Yeah, I would say that there's less, I would say that's more prevalent with Discord, where there isn't like a product that you're expected to be paying attention to use the channel. There are hundreds of ways of talking with people online through apps or other chat rooms, but if you're in a stream chat, it's kind of expected that you're paying attention to the gross product rather than saying, oh, I'm just talking with my friend here and it happens to be, you can use WhatsApp or Telegram or other places for that rather than the stream chat. Usually,
sometimes it's also like, it may be a poll for the class, like sometimes it's interesting to go on to, when you're on Twitch on the chat, just to be entertained by
the chat.
By the chat
Yeah.
itself. And so
chat supplements things in a lot of ways. It's like it's very weird in that sometimes you're in a stream, not like you said, not just for the video product that's being put in front of you, but for the culture of the chat. Sometimes it's hilarious to see your favorite pro players screw up. Sometimes it's hilarious to see them get angry at missing a shot, essentially. And it's even more entertaining to be able to point that out with a bunch of other people. And especially if the professional player that you're watching, maybe it's one you don't like. Maybe it's one you think is cocky. Maybe it's one you think doesn't deserve all the praise they get. When they screw up and you get to yell about that with a bunch of other people that acknowledge the same thing happening, it's cathartic. That's probably part of the appeal of it, even though I'm not going to advocate being particularly abusive or anything like that, but I can understand the emotions behind it. I can understand the catharsis behind it. So that kind of culture clashes with like a greater concept of Twitch culture or platform culture. There is like a thought that people hate streaming on Facebook or Mixer or whatever because there's no Twitch emotes. Because the emotes that Twitch has as their global emotes or as the ones specific to a channel, they don't exist there, so why would I use that platform? It isn't as fun. I can't use the same emotes for the same reactions, so why would I use that platform? This sucks. So yeah, it's kind of a river. You either struggle against it or you kind of ride the flow, and it depends what you're willing to tolerate, I guess. So yeah, we're gonna move away from Twitch and streaming. Does anyone have any questions about what I've talked about before we move on? Cool. So yeah, disclaimer on the profiling, armchair psychoanalysis. When you spend a lot of time in communities, you tend to notice a lot of patterns. You tend to notice a lot of people acting the same way or from the same reasons, or for the same reasons rather. So basically I just put together 4 profiles of different people based on how they might act, how they might attach to a product or a brand, and what that kind of means for the greater success of that. So the observer's kind of like, I kind of view a lot of these as just graphs, and it's a lot of different like quantities of the graph, if that makes sense. So this is kind of the low end of everything. This is low engagement. They don't care about the marketing. They don't care about how the stream makes them feel as a person. They don't care about how the streamer feels like their best friend. They don't care necessarily. They just want to have the stream on as a necessity where they care about the game, not necessarily a team or a player, or they just want background noise. They just want something that's going to be able to, not be silence or music or whatever. So basically, these people are, I don't want to say filler, but they are people that kind of make up the ranks. They're the people that go to a Maple Leafs game because their work invited them. They don't necessarily care, but they're there anyway. They're there just because it might be fun. And this kind of also occupies the same space as like people who invade other chats that they don't really care about it. They're just there to like shit post in the chat. They're there as outsiders or malcontents or whatever. Low attachment rate to the life of their account as well. They aren't going to be spending money on subscriptions or donations or anything. So if their account gets banned, they don't necessarily care. They just start another one with a 1 at the end, and then another one with a 2 at the end, and then they don't necessarily care. It's disposable. The next one is the fan. I would say that this one has attachment to individual streamers, games, teams. They like Dota. They like Evil Geniuses, the team that I worked for. They like certain player. There's an entry level of emotional connection with the mission of the stream. So if the stream has a mission that is saying, I want to show off X player, or I want to broadcast this tournament, that person is there. That person is attached. That person is there for the long haul, and they want to be entertained by that specific thing. However, where this differentiates things is that there's a low level of identity associated with the fandom. They are not like living the brand, so to speak. They are not buying merchandise. They don't necessarily care about the team's Twitter. They don't care about the video content that they're putting out. They're just kind of consuming, but not necessarily in a negative way. It's in a positive way. They kind of find their place, but it's not to the level of a greater engaged consumer that's kind of getting towards the next two. The next one anyway is the Enthusiast. It identifies a streamer, team, or activity as one as they actively like, prefer, or favorite. So when you go online and you see 20 streamers that you've followed, you want this one to be live. You identified this one as one where I want to consume this guy's content. I want there to be new stuff. If you binge a TV series on Netflix and you hit when it ends, you want there to be more. Because you have kind of taken the ride and you've attached yourself to that. Basically, this person wants to engage with the community as well. They want to chat. They want to chat about what's happening. They want to say hi to people that they already know, they've seen in other chat or channels. They want to donate. They want to tip. They want to subscribe. They want to support that person, because it's kind of answering the question of like, I can't do this if I don't have money, And that person says, oh, I recognize that without my support, that person can't do this anymore. So politely, I'm going to give them money. So it's kind of the definition of a regular. It's like if you're a regular at a bar, if you're a regular at a clothing store or a coffee shop or something, you're expecting a certain degree of engagement and familiarity from the people who are running it. The streamer, it would be nice if the streamer knew your name. It would be nice if they recognized who you were or remember things that you've said, or maybe play a game with you or something like that. That's a level that you're striving to. That would be nice for you. That would be something that makes you happy and makes you more engaged with the stream. They might stream themselves. It might not be successful, but they might stream themselves based on either inspiration from the streamer that they're watching, or they just want to kind of do the same thing. This means that they have identity with their username. They have identity with their identity, I guess. They have an identity, let's put it that way. My handles are always first name, last name, because that's just from journalism school. Having my first name, last name means that people know who I am. So I have an attachment with that username because it's me. But some people have usernames that they're really attached to. They want people to know that it's them. They want people to recognize, oh, this person's streaming too, or I recognize that name. It's a little bit of a complicated, situation, but since money is changing hands, like I said, and their handle is recognizable, it's more risk in terms of losing that, and it's also more incentive to be a nice person, if that makes sense. No one wants to get banned from their favorite streamer's chat, if that makes sense, because that means that streamer doesn't like you, or that means that I've been enough of an asshole in order to deserve that. So yeah, subscription streaks, like I said earlier, I've subscribed for 12 months. I've seen people who have subscribed for 78 months, which is multiple years of every month giving that $5 to that person's stream. And if one of those people were to get their account banned for something stupid and they lose that streak, that's probably something they're going to miss. That's probably something they're going to not necessarily want to start over from zero. It sounds silly, but it works. That's brand loyalty. That's losing your Starbucks card with all your points on it. That's losing loyalty cards or whatever. You have to start over from zero, and suddenly all that progress you've kind of amassed, or that experience you've amassed, doesn't mean anything anymore. So the last is the advocate, or the stan, using the cool kids lingo. Basically, these people are obsessives. These people are both teetering on like if you're a person who's streaming or if you're a person who has their own brand, you're both happy and a little nervous about having these people as attached as they are to you. They feel a strong personal and emotional connection with the brand or individual. They recognize the desire for financial support, is trusting enough to donate, subscribe, purchase merchandise. These are the people that are camping out for that merchandise drop at midnight. These are the people that are telling their friends in order to be able to buy it as well. These are the people that are onboarding not everyone they know, but people, you know. They're actively promoting that streamer's content, and that's the key. If you are creating your own content, or if you're, you know, blogging or Twittering or whatever, if you have a fan that is actively sharing your stuff because they want to and they believe that your content is good, that's better than anything. You want those people, because that means you don't have to pay money in order to reach more audiences, and you have people naturally who don't have to be paid or don't have to be coerced saying you're awesome, and that's a great stamp of approval pretty much. I'd say that the Advocate has a strong parasocial attachment to experience in the community. They basically think that the streamer is their friend. They think that the team is one that is, you know, if they could follow them around to live tournaments for their entire year, they would. They are making signs. They are getting autographs. They are making fan art. You know, they are finding connection within the team that gives them meaning in life. They consider the part of their fandom a part of their identity and their ongoing happiness. If you've ever seen the craziness that's K-pop Twitter, those people love Korean pop bands, and their happiness is hinging on how that is going. I don't know much about it, but you know, I'm content to just live or let live. You can do whatever you want, just don't hurt anyone. So also, last 2 points, I guess, they're engaging with third-party information. So if a player is on a team, I am a fan of this player, so now I'm a fan of the team. If the player leaves to another team, I'm now a fan of that team. You're engaging with things, not only the individual person, but you're saying, if I support the team, that means my player gets more money. You know, that means that there's more opportunity for them, and I want to see them succeed. So that extra step, that extra kind of exploration in the web, I guess, or the mind map, is kind of what teams want. That's why they want players with high amounts of followers, because in order to, you know, if you bring on that player, you get some of your fans. Excuse me. Like I said, first in line to buy merch, exclusive experiences, which is a big one. A lot of easy promotion is like, oh, this is a giveaway. You give us your email and your Twitter, and you make it easier for us to contact you. You might win a signed jersey. You might win backstage pass at this tournament. You might win a computer or something from our sponsors. That takes a certain degree of familiarity to get people to give up that information. So being able to say, hey, I'll do that with no question, that shows that you're a certain level of dedicated fan. So yeah, that's all about profiling and that kind of stuff. Like I said, it's mostly from my experience with dealing with fans. Emily, you can probably see a lot of different fans that, you know, varying levels of that kind of stuff. Does anyone have any questions before I move on? Hi. Okay.
Before we get into the next part, I was just asking Matt, I said, why, you know, right now I'm studying audiences in sport video games, as you know. And part of why, I don't know why I'm sitting here having this bias and like, it's so strange. I don't know if you're feeling the same thing I am, but I was just thinking about the fan. Like, so I'm a huge fan of basketball, football, soccer, whatever you want to call it. So let's say basketball, we're at home watching, and watching the highlights, checking in on social, what's going on. Love following the NBA and their individual players on social media. Love their Instagrams. Now, like their latest, even their TikToks are awesome. So, and then often you like get an opportunity. So we're heading to New York next week, and sorry, can everyone just give me 10? You know, you want to go to the Nets, we're going to go to the Islanders, we're doing something like, I'm actually going to a sporting event. When I'm hearing about, for some reason, the Stan Advocate fan, I'll call it, or profile, and they go to a esport event, I'm sitting here going, oh, that's obsessive. Like, they're going to go and like I'm seeing it as negative. They're going to go seek out the player and find them, and I'm feeling like it's a strange thing versus actually, hold on a second, there's a lot of the similar behaviors. And in esports events, as Matt will get into, is there's only so many a year. It's not like you can go to basketball once a week if you wanted to in Toronto, or a hockey game once a week in Toronto. And then you can go to the big games like All-Star or the Super Bowl or draft or whatever. So Matt, can you just address that a little bit? Because a lot of the times I think that because we're sports experts and we're sports fans and we're studying sport media, that we relate by drawing a parallel to our fan experience. So I really want to make sure that we're differentiating. Yeah. And I don't know, anyone else feeling that way too? Like you're sitting watching your stream and then you're going out to the event, or is that just me?
Well, like what we talked about is that the experiences are a little bit different, like or in terms of equivalent experiences, if that makes sense. Like for me, I would say that if you're going to a Toronto Maple Leafs game just for the hell of it, that's pretty much the equivalent of watching a stream of the tournament. Going to an actual event in esports, they're very few and far between, mostly because a lot of competition is either happening online or it's happening in an environment that isn't accessible to the public. Typically, the group stages of most tournaments are played in hotel suites, or they're played in the players are staying in a hotel, they've got the ballrooms set up for group stage matches and they're broadcasting those. So you can't attend those. So for the finals or the final bracket or whatever, after group stages, that's where you're going to travel, but it's almost a vacation. It's almost something that requires travel. It requires accommodations, requires buying food and like that kind of stuff. It's not as easily accessible as just going to a Leafs game tonight because they're playing and you got a ticket kind of thing. It requires an extra level of going out of your way in order to do it. I'm also, something that I just thought of anyway is that when working with a team on a social media side of things, most esports fans do not know how to be sports fans. They are not coming from the same background. And like for me, a struggle we always had was like it's common in sports that if your team loses, there's going to be a lot of armchair GMs saying who to kick and who to drop. But in esports, I feel that there's a lot of that patience and growing phase, or like the rebuild phase of like a team needing to pick up young talent and being able to like grow them into an actual capable team of winning. That patience isn't necessarily there in esports. Maybe it's not there in sports either, but depends on the fan base, I guess. So the experiences are a bit different, and then we're also dealing with people who don't have the same experience of being able to go to regular sports events. So going to an esports event is more like I was saying, it's more close to like going to a comic convention, where you're saying, okay, I've experienced all this stuff online and at a distance for a really long time. Now, since I've got money, or I've got friends to go with, or I've got friends to meet there, and that's something that we'll go into in Discord and stuff, is that making these online relationships that transition into meeting people. Hey, you want to go to the international this year? Like I have friends that I play Dota with that they're all over the world. They're California, Netherlands, Hawaii. Trying to find a good time zone for everyone is terrible. But usually every year they go to the international, and wherever it is, and that's when we can actually hang out in person, because it's very unlikely that we're going to be able to hang out in person, outside of like a Discord call, outside of a Dota game or something like that. So that's what makes esports very interesting to me, as opposed to, like, I'm not necessarily a sports fan. Like, I don't have any major teams that I follow or anything like that, because like I've got enough to follow, if that makes sense. But at the same time, it's like esports has a different culture and like a different kind of basis, because most people I think are coming in from liking video games and then they go into the pro side of things. Maybe that's equivalent to people liking hockey and then going to watch pro hockey. Some people just like hockey, like pro hockey, because it's what their family likes or what their family does. Or in the States, it's a lot bigger with college sports, where that's just the thing. That's how your college celebrates your college, or regional rivalries or whatever. You might not like football, but you like going to the football college game, because that's what culturally, that's what you do. That's how your town celebrates or whatever. So those kind of contexts are really important, and it's also a regional, like it's also muddled by esports fans are global, and interact with the product a lot more differently than like Toronto hockey fans. It's like a large part of working at EG, a large part of our demographic is Southeast Asia. It's Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And they interact with esports in a completely different way than North American audiences do. And being able to parse that and being able to make a product that engages everyone and reaches everyone is challenging. But that's kind of just the reality of it. You cannot ignore that demographic just because they aren't North American and that's where your team is. Those people have money that's just as good. I don't mean to say it so cynically, but ultimately keeps the lights on. Anyways, Discord. Discord is probably the last half of this lecture. I think we're like 2/3 of the way through now. But Discord again, as I said with Twitch and like the streaming platforms, I said that everything kind of encompasses like a concept of video streaming. Discord is a little bit more focused because it's so unique at this point where enterprise software like Skype or other social networks like WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever, they don't achieve the same things, they don't scratch the same itches, and they don't address things in a specific way. And the reason why most esports teams are using Discord the way they are is because it is based, like, it was made as a gamer-focused kind of platform. Of course, that's expanded to a degree where not just gaming audiences are using it, like, political parties are using it. Discord is very ubiquitous, at least if you're very online. And not everyone's very online, but it's the emphasis of very online. It enters our discussion by increasing the access users have to the team, the streamer, or the brand. If people are more attached to the streamer or the brand, they're going to be more likely to want to spend their time in the ecosystem. I use that term ecosystem a lot because it encompasses so many different things. It's the actual product of competition, it's the personal streams, it's the merchandise, it's the Discord, it's the, if you want everything that the team offers to be part of your life, you're fully invested in that ecosystem, or you're kind of piecemealing, doing little bits of it. Being able to explain what a channel or a server offers, it's like community, a sense of belonging, and like I said, it's value. Sorry guys. It's value. Value, whenever people ask me how do I create a stream or how do I get started with my own content, the thing that you think about most is creating value. It is what can I do that other people cannot, or what can I do with my expertise or my knowledge that will enrich someone. If you're enriching people, that means they are going to be gracious for it. If I make even if you're listening to a certain song or view a picture, like some of you probably follow like someone's pet account on Instagram or something like that. You do that because it makes you happy to see that dog. You do that because that cat makes you laugh. That is the value that it provides to your life. It makes you happy. So if you can figure out what value you bring to other people, it's easy to be focused like that. And if you're creating value through the different platforms that you're on, like Discord or Instagram, whatever, people are more likely to stick around. They're more likely to engage with it. Discord and other platforms invite people into the brand's home. And the other way around. It's basically saying, hey, we're telling you that you have to make a conscious effort to just join our server, see it on a daily basis, interact with it, get notifications from it. It takes a lot for people to be able to make that decision for themselves. It takes people, it can take a lot of effort for people to just say, I want to follow this account. Because like I said, you're kind of committing to see it every day. I know I've unfollowed people because the ratio of tweets that they have to the rest of my feed, they just dominate it, right? They post so much that all you're seeing is their stuff. And even if you really like their stuff, there is like a little bit of an overload there. So saying I'm worth being in your balanced, curated life of things that you're following is very difficult. And being able to do that successfully is worth it because, gets people in the ecosystem, like I said. I also subscribe to this notion of what I call the bank of goodwill. A lot of brands, like any brand, can really benefit from it. You are doing things that don't feel like marketing and have value to your consumer, and that builds up goodwill. If you are producing product that makes their life better, if you are doing video interviews that don't feel like marketing, if you're doing content that doesn't feel like marketing, that doesn't feel like I am asking you to buy something, that makes your viewer happy. That makes your audience feel like they're getting something of value. It makes them feel that they don't have to pay for it, or they're not like being taken advantage of. That builds up like a budget of goodwill. And when you screw up, when you say something stupid, or you make a dumb decision, or your team loses in the grand finals, or whatever, you cash out that bank of goodwill because you've built up such a good bank that people will say, oh, okay, we understand. You guys are allowed to make mistakes. If you keep making mistakes on an empty bank of goodwill, people give up. People stop being patient. People move on. It also means that it's not just covering for mistakes. It's also, I have this product that you need to spend money on. I have this new t-shirt coming out. I have this new album or whatever. Having a good bank of goodwill means going to your audience and saying, well, you know all this stuff that I produce for free and that I've made your life great. You can pay me back by now buying stuff directly from me. And it's not obviously that cynical, but that's the kind of psychological trigger that's happening. So yeah, that's how I view a lot of like social marketing and like building a good audience, is just making sure that you're kind of in a place of humility where you're constantly looking to provide for your audience rather than looking to squeeze them, because they can tell, and there's so many other things that they can engage with. It's just easy to just say, okay, well, I know what's going on here. Screw you on that, you know. Discord, like I said, is very easier to use than previous solutions. All four of those programs, Ventrilo, TeamSpeak, and Mumble, were kind of precursors to Discord, where they were voice channels, where you would join a channel via password, have a username, and be able to talk to people. However, you would need to have a different login for each server. You would have to juggle them like by disconnecting and connecting. You couldn't be connected to all of them at the same time. It was generally just difficult to use. They were more software than services. So you would download Ventrilo and then buy your own server software, or like server space. Excuse me. Thank you. Wow, a polite audience. Truly a Canadian audience. You would buy like server space. You'd buy your own hosting, and then you'd host your server so that people would be able to join and talk on voice. It'd be the same thing with video games, where you would buy your own server space, and that's where you would host your like Call of Duty server or your Minecraft server or whatever. Now more and more companies are realizing that it's better to have people on their own infrastructure. So Discord doesn't require any buy-in, does not require any hosting, does not require any payment. You just sign up. You can create as many servers as you want. They all live on Discord's resources, but Discord gets to harvest all your data. And it's the same thing with any other social media platform now. The social media platform is free. You're the product. So Facebook, WhatsApp, you know, anything that isn't like super encrypted or whatever, you can basically go to Discord and say, give me all the data that you have on me. And it's every picture, every DM, every chat message you sent. So them being able to sell that to advertisers is what keeps the lights on and lets them do business basically and cover the cost of you using their resources. But it makes it easier for people to use. It makes it easier for anyone that does not have the knowledge of how to install a server on hosting to be able to just register on Discord, create their own channel, throw a link to someone, and then all their friends can download it, join the server, that kind of stuff. It's also a sillier thing where, not a sillier thing, but it's one of those things that you don't necessarily give it a lot of credit for, is that having just one username login, that's your username for Discord. Whoever channels you join or servers you join, you use the same username, same login, same avatar. Having that complication taken out of the equation, that's a lot for some people. When they introduced the ability to just claim your own username, that was a big deal in terms of ease of use, because it was stuff that people didn't have to keep track of and forget and log in every single time that they wanted to join the server. You could just log in once, all your servers are there, you can chat or talk where you want. And having that ease of access is extremely important for more people from the mainstream to be able to join in, more people who aren't technically minded, and non-gamers, because gamers tend to have a very generous crossover with people who know technology, tinker, that kind of stuff, know how to kind of problem solve things on their own computers. It's also important that it has more security features, easier invite system, things like bot APIs, so being able to develop a bot that will moderate for you, or if you're streaming, it will automatically put a link in a channel saying that that channel is live. things like that, like I said, make the community easier to manage, give people more tools. And like I said, Skype, if you added the wrong person on Skype, you pretty much had to start over with a new account. Call your ISP, say, hey, reset my IP address, because they know it. I don't have internet because they're attacking my internet, essentially. So for the entire infrastructure of esports, that security was needed. Two more slides. Discord also represents a kind of a important concept of scaling down interaction. Remember I was saying that, like, you're not going to a Twitch chat in order to be able to have like a nuanced discussion. In a Discord, you're making a choice to scale down the amount of people that you're talking to and have availability to talk to. So you're basically saying, I don't think any brand wants 100% of their Twitter followers on their Discord channel, because that would just be hell to moderate. And you've got a lot of people who just kind of follow you at an arm's length. They don't want to actually talk. They might find it annoying. All of a sudden, like, EG had 500,000 Twitter followers. I don't want to moderate 500,000 people. That sounds like hell on earth. So being able to say, sure, you might only get to chat with 1,000 people instead of 100,000 people, but that conversation is going to be really good. You're going to have value from that conversation. Those people are hardcore fans. They're going to help you get better at Dota. You're going to find your best man. You're going to find your maid of honor in that channel. Who knows? Just because you like the same thing. But that voluntary scaling down of user interaction is important, because it allows brands to focus on a better experience with a less amount of people. Like I said, not every fan is going to become a Discord user, and that's somewhat planned. You want Discord, you want your server to essentially be a filter and saying, okay, here are our really engaged fans so we can interact with them better. We can convert those people into advocates who will do our marketing for us and who will spread goodwill for our brand. They will be the fans that create their own banners. They will, think about soccer supporter legions, like the hooligan firms and shit like that. Sorry, I curse like a sailor. Think about like all those supporter firms, I think they're called. Yeah, firms, but basically they're just like in Europe, mostly like there's a lot for MLS and that kind of stuff, but they find an identity and they create their own fan clubs, essentially. You don't have to do any of your own marketing. You just let them, you provide them tools to be able to do it, and then you kind of let them go. And they'll hopefully add more butts and seats and buy more merch. So it's about enabling people. Discord provides an alternate home. So instead of going to that stream chat, you know that you can chat about the game that's going on with people in stream. That's something that we did a lot with EG, is that we corralled pretty much the people that either knew the most about Dota or were passionate and following the team for a long time, and we encouraged them, hey, you can chat with us, you can chat with staff, and even if we're not public facing, people still like being in the presence of staff. I know it sounds really weird, but it's like, if you have the chance to sit in a box with the Raptors GM, even if you don't necessarily care about him, it's still, you get to be close to important people, or people that are important in the context of the company you like. So offering that kind of value, it basically says, get away from your own chat, come to our chat, it's better. It also supplements personal servers, and that's something I'm going to get into in the last slide. I made a fancy diagram, but people are still going to have their own servers. People are also going to have their own social networks where smaller groups of people, it's going from a group, like a friend group of 3 people, to a class the size of 30 people, to your graduating class. Each of those things has like ties that bring people together. But the smaller the group, the more intense those ties are. So basically, like, you never want to stop a fan from having their own channel, because that's where they're allowed to be their true self. Even if they think they can do that in your server as a brand or a team or whatever, you still kind of want to say, like, bring your enthusiasm back home, so to speak. You can kind of incentivize that. Like I said, there's a lot of incentives for spending money or joining servers, like I said, with Twitch subscriptions, exclusive emotes, practical functions like bigger file limits. So if you're uploading GIFs and stuff, you can upload bigger GIFs. stuff like that. Basically, it's up to the team to be able to provide incentives for people to join your server. For us, we made it easier for people to get push notifications for when our matches were starting. Esports has a notoriously terrible time schedule where if you are trying to follow a tournament, if it says it's starting at 2 p.m., good luck. It might start at 4, it might start at 12. Pretty much the only thing that is guaranteed in an esports time schedule is when the first game of the day starts. That's the only thing that you can count on. So if we're on a China time schedule, because our team's in China, competing for like the weekend hypothetically, and we're trying to reach our fan base who just want to sleep. They do not want to be awake for all the other games. They want to just be awake for our game. If we can provide them a value of saying, okay, we're going to ping your phone when our draft is live, when our first game is live, so you know to get out of bed, to set your alarm, whatever, so you can come watch. That's value that we can provide for our audience, and that makes them want to join our server because we provide that value. So yeah, it's about trying to find a balance between that practical value, but also like building goodwill, like I said. So my fancy diagram is inverted pyramid engagement. I learned how to draw in Google Slides for this. So yes, basically public product, like I said, it's the Twitch stream. It's the biggest group, like I said. It's watching the tournament with a bunch of other people, but not necessarily engaging with them. Public informational channels are things that provide value, but aren't necessarily from a marketing perspective. If you're following a wiki, if you're following ESPN for sports like details of when games are going live, that kind of stuff, that is more trust and more kind of attachment, but not as much as like say your private channel where you're there with your friends or other fans of the team. Like I said, it takes graduating steps of an ask for people to follow these channels. It takes more and more to be able to say, follow our Twitter, we have interesting stuff for you. Follow our individual player accounts because they have value for you. Follow our Discord server because that has value for you. Trying to go down this pyramid, it's a bigger ask every single time, but you have to be able to provide more value and earn more trust. So public social channels, like I said, it's Discord channels, newsletters, niche forums, things that you are thinking, it is valuable for me to be on these platforms because I'm learning and because I'm engaging with the brand. Private channels, like I said, it's personal social media networks. It's like your immediate family, so to speak, of people that you interact with on a daily basis. Personal Discord channels where you might be talking about things that happen in other channels, and then small scale group calls and chats. So like for this class or for your year, if you guys have any WhatsApp group chats for studying or whatever, that's like a good example of a really private channel. And like say, I know we had graduates of 2012 Facebook group for when our first year of university. That's a good example of like a bigger public information channel that you're not really expected to interact with people on a one-to-one basis, but it has valuable information. So each one of those things going down the list, you're going to have more comfort. It's going to feel more like home. It's going to feel more like a place where you can be like your true self. And it also has more personal identity attachment, where your server is your place on the internet. Your Twitter is your place on the internet to be able to exist and to be able to engage with the things that you care about. So it kind of, like I said, diagrams are fun. So yeah, thanks for listening. That's pretty much all I really got. Cheers. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Matt Demers on both. Like I said, I work for chillhop.com. We are a lo-fi, indie, chill hop beats, whatever brand. Yeah, it's to study and relax too. We're the one with the raccoon. If you go to chillhop.com, we have a couple of YouTube and Spotify playlists. I do stuff with them, like I said, with basically going to streamers and saying, hey, you want legal music so your stuff doesn't get muted because of like copyright claims and that kind of stuff. So I work with streamers and video game devs and that kind of stuff for that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you. This was great.
Question.
Yes, questions, comments, tomatoes.